Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club and this announcement of the 2025 Diversity Book Bingo. As the year is about to end, I have been looking at my reading statistics from this year, and I realized that I am still not reading as diversely as I would like to. And so I decided to make this bingo board as a challenge for myself and as a fun way to keep different kinds of diversity aspects a little bit more top of mind, and so that I can be a bit more mindful when I choose what books to read. And I thought maybe someone else would like to participate and use this bingo board for their own reading as well. So I decided to put this video together and the bingo board and the prompts and all of that. So yeah, I'm excited to share that with you. So in this video, I will first explain the bingo board itself and how you can use it in a few different ways. Next, I will go through all of the prompts and tell you a little bit about my thoughts behind them and how you can use them. And lastly, I wanted to show you a concrete example of how this can be used. So I'm going to use all of the books that I read in 2024 and see if I would have gotten bingo or not. So first, let me explain how this bingo works. There is, of course, a bingo board with 25 prompts. Some of these prompts are a bit more on the fun and easy side, and some are a bit more challenging. There's also a list of 5 types of diversity representation, and there's also a list of continents. So to get bingo, you need to accomplish 3 things. First, you need to have bingo on the bingo board, and that can be a row, meaning fulfilling 5 prompts in a row, or you can go for blackout and fulfill all of the 25 prompts. Second, you need to check each of the 5 types of diversity representation at least once, preferably more times than that. So we have Indigenous or Native people, minority in the country that they're in, LGBTQIA+, disability, and neurodivergence. Third, you need to read a book from each of the 6 populated continents, and that needs to be a book that's set in the continent and written by an author from that continent. So that's North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, or Oceania. So depending on how you play this game, that means you can read anywhere from 6 books to 25 books over the course of the year. The minimum is 6 books, since you need to read 1 book from each of the 6 continents. And the maximum is 25 because there are only 25 squares on the bingo board. So if you want to get bingo with just 6 books, you need to read 1 book from each continent that also fits with 5 prompts on the bingo board in a row somehow. And you also need to have representation of the diversity types within those 6 books. On the bingo board itself, you can choose to double up if you want to, meaning you can read 1 book and use that for several different prompts on the bingo board, or you can limit yourself to using 1 book for 1 prompt only. So the strictest way to play this would be to go for blackout and read 25 books for each of the prompts on the bingo board, while also fulfilling reading from the 6 different continents and fulfilling the 5 types of diversity representation. I hope that makes sense. The rules are a little bit fluid because I don't want to put pressure on anyone to feel like they're obligated to do this a certain way, including myself. I prefer to have the freedom to interpret some prompts more strictly and less strictly on others, because I think that depending on what level you're at and like how diversely you're reading at the moment, if you're not reading diversely at all, it might be a very big jump to suddenly read super diversely and be super strict with own voices, for instance. It's more sort of inviting and inclusive if you can be a little bit loose with it to start with. And if you want a little bit more of a challenge and you want to be a little bit more strict with it, you can choose to read only own voices. I think sometimes it's good to have those strict rules, and sometimes it just means that we're not playing along at all. And so yeah, I just want there to be some flexibility and not to put too much pressure and like still have it be fun, but just encourage people and myself to read more diversely. Make sense? Okay. If you're confused at the moment, I think it will become more clear once I go through the prompts and show you some concrete examples. So let's move on to discussing the 25 prompts for the bingo board. So the first group of prompts have to do with geography, and they are to read a book from a country you've never read from before, read a book set on an island, and a translated book. And for the first two prompts, country you've never read from before and island, the point is to read a book set in that country or on that island and by an author who is from that country or island. And this needs to be a real country and a real island, so not like a fantasy island and, fantasy country. It's meant to be set in the real world. The next group of prompts is personal well-being, because I want to feel good while playing this bingo and I want you to feel good as well. So first we have laughter, and this is just to read a book that makes you laugh, and it doesn't have to be a comedy or a book within the humor category. As long as it made you laugh or chuckle or giggle or whatever that looks like for you, that book can go for this prompt. Next we have future empowerment. It can be a memoir that you feel is empowering, or some kind of self-help book, or some kind of book that empowers you in terms of your finances, productivity, your mental or physical well-being. In terms of fiction, it can be a story that you find empowering, anything that you feel is empowering you. Next we have 5-star read. This can be a reread or it can be a surprise, and it might not be possible to decide beforehand what that book will be, but I want you to find a 5-star read in this next coming year, and I want myself to do that as well. Next we have comfort read, and this can also be a reread, or it can be reading a book from one of your favorite authors, or continue a series that you like, or a genre that you find comforting. If it's a cozy fantasy or a romance or a horror, I don't care. As long as it's a comfort read for you, it counts for this prompt. The next one is favorite author, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Read a book from your favorite author or one of your favorite authors. That's it. The next group of prompts are book or genre related. So here we have memoir or biography, nonfiction, a 2025 release, a short story or a short story collection, and a genre out of your comfort zone. I think these are pretty self-explanatory. I will say for the 2025 release that I would encourage you to get it from the library if possible, or if you have a subscription or some kind of deal for ebooks or audiobooks, you can get it from there as well. So I don't want to force anyone to buy a brand new book. They can be very expensive and hard to come by, but there are plenty of different ways to get new releases these days, and so I would just encourage you to look into alternative ways. The next group of prompts are themes, and these might be easy or more challenging depending on how you interpret them. These are just themes that I find important and interesting and that I would encourage other people to read about, and that I want to read about myself. But if any of them make you feel bad, just switch them out for something other that interests you. The first one is feminist, and this can be interpreted in lots of different ways. It can be a book with an issue that is important as a feminist or for girls and women and non-male individuals. It can also be a book that has a little bit more of a critical view on feminism and white feminism and inclusive versus exclusive feminism. There are lots of different types and ways to think about feminism. Remember, there's a whole list of diversity prompts that go together with all of these prompts. The next one is animals, and the same goes for this one in terms of interpretation and how sort of deep you want to dive into it. You can read a work of fiction that has a cute dog in it that just makes you appreciate cute animals, or you can read a nonfiction book about animal rights or how animals are used in different industries, in medicine and testing, eating animals and animal products. It can be about using dogs in service in different ways for the police or fire department or as a service dog. Lots of different ways that you can read about animals and incorporate that into diversity. The next one is mental health. You can read a work of fiction where one of the characters maybe struggles with their mental health. It can be a memoir about someone struggling or maybe who has overcome a struggle with their mental health. It can be a work of nonfiction about mental health or psychology. It can be something that you want to read and use to improve your own mental health. It can be lots of different things, and you decide for yourself what that means for you and what makes you feel good and what you want to learn about. And then the last theme prompt is migration. It's something that has a huge impact on lots of people's lives, and I think it's an important thing to understand and just learn a bit more about if you don't have that experience yourself. This can come into works of fiction about people migrating for whatever reason. It can be a memoir by someone who has had to migrate for whatever reason. It can be a nonfiction looking at migration as a social phenomenon. And, it can be whatever you decide that you want to read. I just think that migration has such an impact on so many people, both the people who are migrating, and it also impacts a country in lots of different ways, and it impacts the politics in a country in lots of different ways. I'm sure that you can find something that interests you in this topic. And again, if it is too close to home, or if it's not something that you feel like you want to dive into at this moment, feel free to switch out this one or any of the other prompts in the theme category for something else, history or civil rights or politics or economy or health or something completely different. Moving on to the next group of prompts, which has to do with acquisition or consumption, and these are secondhand, library, and backlist. These are just here to encourage myself and you to use your library, thrift for books in your local secondhand stores if you have any available to you, or use an online service for secondhand books. The point is just to read a book that you found secondhand or from the library or backlist. The last group of prompts have to do with community, big and small, all of the readers and all of the people who enjoy books in some way, shape, or form. So the first prompt here is read a book for another reading event, a buddy read, a book club, a readathon on booktube, reading for a certain prize. Maybe you're reading the books for the Women's Prize or the Booker Prize or the Nobel Prize. Any book that you read for another event can go on this prompt. The next prompt is recommended. So a book that came recommended to you from a friend or from a booktuber or a review in the paper or on a blog, whatever. If it's a book that you were recommended by someone, you can put it on this square. The next prompt is to read a book that fits with a prompt from someone's list. So if you use prompts to decide your TBR, you can use your own prompts for this prompt. There are also lots of booktubers who make lists of prompts for the year that you can follow along with. The ones that come to mind are the Buzzwordathon by Kayla at Books and Lala. Simon at Savage Reads has the Savage prompts that he does with Louise at Louise Savage, I think her handle is. Ben at Ben Reads Good also has a year-long list of prompts. The next one is book and adaptation. And this is just to read a book that has been adapted in some way into a play or a movie or a TV show, or maybe a graphic novel, and just experience the book in some other way, and you can cross off this prompt. And the very last prompt is a prize winner. So this can be a winner of any prize from any year. Nobel Prize, Women's Prize, Booker Prize, Goodreads Awards, BookTube Awards, any kind of prize that you can find. If a book has won it, then you can use that to check off this prompt. Those are the 25 prompts on the bingo board. And like I mentioned, there will be a Google document in the description that you can look at and read more about the different prompts. And if you want to refresh your memory throughout the year, that resource is available for you. So every book that you read for this bingo has to go somewhere on the bingo board and fit with one of the 25 prompts. But the point is also to incorporate the diversity representation prompts and also the 6 continents. Not every book of the 25 possible books that you put on the bingo board has to fulfill the diversity representation prompts or the continent prompts. If you're reading a fantasy, it's not going to be set on any of the 6 continents, presumably. But if you're going for blackout, you might not fit diversity into all of your 25 books, and that's completely fine. But to get a bingo and get a qualified bingo, you have to also incorporate the diversity representation into your books. So the prompts on the bingo board are designed to be a bit fun and a bit easy, like the prompt library, for instance. That can literally be any book that you can find from your library. But the point is to also incorporate the continents and the diversity representation prompts onto the books that you put on the bingo board. So if you want to borrow a book from the library and you want to use that for the library prompt on the bingo board, I would encourage you to pick a book that's set in a continent that you haven't read from before and that also has some kind of diversity representation. Maybe it deals with a minority group in the country that it's set in. It might have disability representation or neurodivergence representation. And so just try to combine these diversity prompts into the prompts on the bingo board, or you won't get bingo. So to show you a concrete example of how this would work, I have played this bingo with the books that I have read in 2024. So I have given the diversity representation and continents a little emoji just to make it easy to mark down which books fit which prompt. The emojis for the different continents are different endangered species in each of the continents. So let's see what my bingo board could look like with the books that I have read in 2024. So again, you can choose for yourself how you want to apply the rules of this game. If you want to allow yourself to double up and use one book for several different prompts, and how strictly you want to interpret the diversity representation versus own voices, it's really up to you. The point of this is not perfection, it's just a way to keep it a little bit more top of mind and make sure that I am a bit more mindful with the books that I choose and, hopefully encourage you to do the same. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the comments and I will make sure to answer them and include any extra information in the Google document. There will also be a printable version of the bingo board if you want to, write things by hand. And there will be some graphics that you can use if you want to include them in your own videos and things like that. Just make sure to tag me if you do so that I can see what you are reading and how you're using the bingo board. I would love to see that. I think that's it. So I hope you're having a fantastic day and a fantastic year in 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video and I will see you in the next one.